How's everybody doing? Today's video is going to be just sort of a vlog talking about some issues that I've had recently with some amps that I had previously had really good luck as far as reliability with amps. In recent years, I've been using 3 Mesa heads. I've had a triple rectifier, which I bought used a few years ago, and then I had purchased a very old single rectifier, probably one of the oldest ones you could find based on just the way that it looks. And then I purchased this more recent single rectifier on the basis that a triple rectifier to take to a jam session it's basically overkill. I mean, you don't need to blow the windows out of a building, you just need to be able to play. And a single is 50 watts and it gets very loud, whereas a triple is 150 watts, and that's pretty much the loudest guitar amp as a tube amp that you're ever going to experience in your life. So I was really enjoying my single rectifiers for jamming, and I bought the newer one because the older one needed to go to the shop. So there's one person in my state who is certified to do warranty repairs on Mesa. So I figured that's probably the guy to go to because he's been trained on their products. But he takes a while because he's the only person in the state. So I took my initial single rectifier, which was pretty old, to him. And the issue it was having was, while I was at a jam session, the volume started to really fluctuate and drop out, and on the clean channel you could almost not hear it. On the gain channel it would get super quiet, and then I would try to compensate for it and it would get super loud and I have to turn it down again, and it was really not usable at all, so I had to take it in. And in the meantime I got this newer one. So while the older single rectifier was in the shop, I had this newer one, and the first thing I did was, when I went to install the tubes in it after it got shipped, because I don't think they make this anymore, but it's not brand new, it's just much newer than the original one that I had. So it was used. So a lot of the time people will ship a tube amp with the tubes out, just like indexed with, masking tape around them so that they don't get jostled or whatever from the vibrations of the shipping, and then they can bubble wrap the tubes. I've seen it done several times before, so I think it's a pretty standard practice. So the first thing I did when I got this one, the newer one, was I put the tubes in, and then I went to turn it on, and I accidentally set it on fire, basically. I didn't realize that the tubes that it had, because this one, being a newer model, has the ability to put in 6L6s or EL34s, and it came with EL34s, which I don't prefer the sound of anyway, so this might have been good just for the sake of having to get it swapped to 6L6s anyway. But the tubes that it came with, the sockets are kind of indexed with a dowel pin, but for whatever reason there was really not a lot of resistance where the dowel pin was supposed to be, so I ended up putting both of the power tubes in the wrong position, like spun in the socket. Then when I turned it on, there was no real issue on standby, and then when I turned it on to power, at first I was like, I'm not getting any sound, this is kind of weird. And then I realized that there was a lot of like white thick smoke just pouring out of the bottom part, like the actual amp part, and it smelled, well, so at first I saw the smoke pouring out and I was like, am I seeing things? Because the walls in here are kind of a light gray color, and it was pretty much the color of the smoke, and I was looking at it like, I'm not getting any sound, but am I seeing that right? And then the smell hit me and I was like, okay, yeah, this thing is burning. So I quickly disconnected everything, powered it off. And I took it outside because I didn't want to burn the house down, because I didn't know if it was going to continue to burn. Although it didn't at that point. I took it out onto the back porch, and it cooled off. I let some of the smoke ventilate, but the whole house smelled like an electrical fire for like a couple of days after this happened. Which this was my own doing. So, and none of this is no thing I'm about to say in this video or have said is to knock Mesa amps, because I do think they're built extremely well. This one in particular was my own fault because I put the tubes in the wrong position. And therefore, I really didn't trust running the amp again until I took this one into the repairman. Because, for one thing, the sockets themselves, when I took the tubes out, because I took the amp in and I was thinking, like, what happened here? I took the tubes out and I realized what happened. And the bottom of the tubes, that was all plastic, was all just shattered and snapped off, and a lot of it was still in the sockets of the amp. And so I got as much out as I possibly could using like little tiny picks, like metal picks, at different angles and everything, but I couldn't get it all out. And I had to take it in anyway because I didn't really trust that something hadn't been damaged by that happening, which it had. So I got my original one back, my old single rec. That just needed preamp tubes to solve the volume fluctuating and whatever issue that it had. And then this one I took in after that, and it turned out that basically, obviously I needed to get new power tubes, so I got 6L6s and I brought them to the repair person. But it melted or burned up a resistor. That is what caused all that smoke and smell and everything. And then he cleaned up he replaced that, he cleaned up the board, cleaned up the sockets, and then replaced the power tubes with the 6L6s that I had got that were the Mesa branded ones. So then this one, in terms of power tubes, has been fantastic, and the other one has been running fine. But then I had this newer one at the jam session most recently, and I thought I'll take the new one because it's more robust, it's newer, so I'll just bring this one when I go to jam now. And I was really on the cusp of selling the older single rectifier, because why do I need two single rectifiers and a triple, But when I was at my last jam session with this amp, it started to exhibit the same issue as the old single rectifier did the first time, which is the volume just started really cutting down and fluctuating and dropping out. So without taking it in and waiting for months, I'm going to just preemptively replace the preamp tubes on this, and if that doesn't solve it, then I'll take it in. But it's funny because I've been using tube amps now for many years. I mean, probably over a decade. And aside from problems that I have caused myself, such as, setting an amp up with the resistance wrong if it was switchable, and then burning up the tubes and having to replace them, that sort of thing, or putting them in the wrong position, which I did on this amp, I still would count that as bad luck, because there was not a good indicator that they were in the wrong position, because the tubes were used, they'd already been pulled out, and I had to unwrap them, and they slid in without a lot of fuss, so there was no indication that they were in the wrong position on my end. And the repair guy even said that. He's like, yeah, sometimes, just depending on the brand, or sometimes they get worn, you can't really tell where the dowel pin is. In the future, I'm going to be a lot more careful about that, obviously, because I thought I was going to burn my house down for a second. But essentially, I had maybe one issue very early on in terms of ever using tube amps, and it was something that I caused by using the wrong resistance, and then I fixed it myself. And then this year, I've had multiple issues, including 2 times at 2 different jam sessions, which I do probably a little bit less than once a month, and I've been doing them for a while and going to them, and never had any problems for years. And I took my triple rectifier, the old single rectifier, a 5153, not a 3, sorry, the 5150 Iconic head that I had. I never had a 5153, but I took the 5150 Iconic, which was new, so I wouldn't expect it to really have problems. But in the meantime, I've also used, when I'm at home playing, the only amp that I use is my triple rectifier that I use with a cab clone so that I'm not deafening myself. And thankfully, knock on wood, where's the wood? That one has not had any issues ever since I got it. I used to think that it might have, but I had the gain turned up too high on the effects loop and it wasn't really an issue. That thing has been rock solid. And as far as the actual circuitry of the amp, all these Mesas have been rock solid. But to happen like never for, let's say 10 years, no problems with any tube amps for 10 years. So I'm running pretty lean when I go to jam. I'm bringing one amp, one of every cable that I need, one wah pedal and one guitar. But then 2 times out of this year, so let's say 2 out of 6 jams that I've done this year, my amp has failed, and I think it was the preamp tubes just based on age, because my triple rectifier, my single, really my triple and both singles, they're probably 30, 20, and 15 years old, roughly. So it's not an issue with the amp because those tubes are going to go out periodically. A tube is kind of like a light bulb. It only has a finite life. But to happen twice in a year now, 2 out of 6 times, it's just been really frustrating. So I'm going to replace the preamp tubes on this one first. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything because I know that it has new power tubes. I might as well have all new tubes. And if that doesn't solve the fluctuating volume issue, which I suspect it probably will, then I'll take it in. But what I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to basically take 2 amps when I go to jam, 2 guitars, 2 sets of cables, and 2 wah pedals. So I'm going to bring double of the entire rig that I've been bringing, because it is infuriating really when I go to a place where I'm supposed to be playing guitar and the amp craps out, and then the entire day basically I can't do anything. So I'm doubling up. I'm not going to sell the other single rectifier because I'm going to take 2 single rectifiers to jam every time, 2 sets of cables, 2 of the same wah pedal, and 2 different guitars. And that way I will be able to go there and know for sure that I'm going to be able to actually play, which that whole day is dedicated for, basically. If I don't end up playing, or if I'm playing and the sound is very compromised, then I end up basically useless when I'm there. So it's very frustrating to me. I used to always think it was weird that, like, for example, Buckethead would play every show with 2 amps on the stage, but he's only using 1. But now I get it. Like, you kind of want to have redundancy, and it's not like I'm getting paid to go to jam, but I'm going for my own enjoyment. Like, that's the whole point. I'm going with friends. We're all playing music. We're all musicians. They're being very gracious to host me there, and then I go there and my amp craps out and I can't contribute really what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's frustrating. So this has been my little vlog venting about amp, bad luck of tubes wearing out essentially, and then my own stupidity of setting this one on fire before. But I'm about to take this apart right here and verify what tubes are actually in the preamp section, and then I'm going to order some, and then I should be good from there. But if not, then I'll bring a single and a triple to the next jam, and then maybe the next one after that, depending on how long it takes to get properly fixed. But I suspect that it's just preamp tubes on this thing. It's older than I realized, because in terms of like amps of this caliber, this thing looks new, but it's probably realistically like 15 years old. And the other ones are like 20 or 25 or 30 years old, respectively. So there's really no issue with needing to replace tubes every once in a while. It's just the timing of those issues back to back to back. 3 amp issues in a year on 2 different amps is just, it's like, it feels like my luck has run out, but it's really just bound to happen by time and use and wear, and every single Mesa amp that I've bought has been used, and you don't know how long it's been since they retubed it. So, but yeah, that's all that is to say, I'm gonna be bringing a double rig every time I go to jam, even if it's just for fun, like I have been doing, so that I can actually play. Let me know in the comments if you guys have ever had similar issues, or just like issues of such a frequency that you've had to change your entire plan or your rig or whatever. I do like the idea of preparedness just across the board in life in general, but when it comes to jamming for fun, I guess I was not being as prepared as I should have been. But let me know if you guys have any stories, things that failed, or not necessarily failed or wore out or whatever the case may be. I think that'd be interesting to read about. And thank you for listening to my own issues of the last few months of having issues back to back to back with amps. If you like this video, don't forget to share it and subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys next time.